This video is intended to describe a Lightblade wand named Pharaoh, which will be quite the immersive endeavor, and joining me today shall be my whimsical stick figure chakra map that's quite trustworthy in these endeavors, never lets me down, for various chakra stimulation based on the crystalline composition, which will be quite fast in rendition. So as a very relevant way to break the ice of this vast subject, I'll be discussing the primary blade band scaffolding, seen much like so, which works as vaguely resembling a figure eight to serve as a recirculation containment field for the very high yield concentration of various crystals in one single closed loop apparatus of consciousness assisted technology. Starting off with the transmutation ratio as a very relevant, feasible entry into the cataloging. The aspect of hematite and smoky quartz is seen offset in ignition sequence like so on this lateral band underneath this lovely leather homage to Tutankhamun's burial mask, of course, is the intention of this color combination. Then back on topic, then the transmutation sequence from here goes underneath this leather to its lateral band, and like so, creating a handband closed loop quadrant, which is now concealed. As well as the exact same sequence runs like so around the main heart or engine of the construct to essentially be the transmutation scaffolding seen through here, which would be quite integral and quite contingent to the intended wieldability of this very high yield construct, which will make more sense as I laugh to myself as a crystal nerd. Starting off with hematite to serve as a very powerful iron-based grounder of all excess energy through the root chakra, into the earth stars, into the earth fluid processing, in tandem with smoky quartz offset in the ignition sequence to provide the same energetic stimuli function of grounding and rerouting all excess stray radial energies through the root chakra, into the earth stars, into the earth fluid processing. Hence the two together have been deemed the transmutation ratio to, just as imply, function as a great transmuter of etheric dialysis, if you would, to discourage stagnant energies from being stored in the auric field for consistent reprocessing at a very, very high ratio, as well as quite the integral make the magic real ground point for the rest of the construct, particularly once I discuss the primary blade band focus of what indeed could justify the recipient's request to call it Pharaoh. So, starting off with that next would be clear quartz, seen right here as absolute neutral accelerant of energy, going into Herkimer diamond beads as the ultimate high-yield clear quartz spectrum accelerant, intensification of the other crystalline node, that of Libyan gold tektite, which actually was a very powerful space magic gold ray crystal, which I fondly refer to as goldavite as a homage to moldavite in the gold ray spectrum, which was enjoyed by the pharaohs of antiquity carved into scarab beetles for their magi breastplates, of course, which were indicative of their office as magi god kings. I'm trying to straighten this guy out. We've got a long road ahead of us. Better behave yourself. And so the aspect of Libyan gold tektite being a quintessential golden ray, solar elemental frequency of intensive solar plexus and sacrum stimulation, that of cardinal fire, also has a full gold ray of illumination of the auric field, which is a tremendously powerful dharmic accelerant stimulant of great manifestation power and sovereign imbuement. Hence the aspect of Pharaoh, best have the stones to back it, as a little bit of a whimsical pun. So that's exactly why the heavy concentration of this blade band is that of Libyan gold tektite and Herkimer diamond, which I said is a very exotic, well-praised quartz family spectrum right here to work as a massive intensification of the Libyan gold tektite primary blade band that would be very much befitting a Magi God King of old in a modern construct rendition, basically by design, which goes from the Libyan gold tektite, Herkimer diamond offset and staggered all the way like so, all the way to here, which goes into the clear quartz once again, which most importantly grounds into the transmutation scaffolding to serve as the common ground to, of course, have that massive, intensive, amplified golden ray energy, have a very strong ground to make the magic real, and of course be wieldable and relatively comfortable considering its very, very high yield output. So that's precisely why that figure eight goes like so. Then, like once I mentioned thrice, the transmutation ratio. Then there's a few lateral bands will be discussed before I discuss the intensity and immersive aspects of the main engine of this construct. Starting off with the coherence ratio seen right here with clear quartz grounded into the transmutation scaffolding, of course, to work as a neutral amplification into fluorite, which is a very fantastic stone of order in the mineral kingdom that brings coherence to disparate chaotic energies, which is very cohesive, which will be quite integral for such a high yield dynamic superconductor as a pretty much a important safety regulation, if you would. Clear quartz into lapis lazuli, which is seen in many spots throughout this whole construct, because lapis, of course, is a very, very well notarized, famous blue ray crystal of magical utilization of antiquity, particularly when it comes to the Egyptian caste. So the aspect of lapis being a tremendous air elemental 5th and 6th chakra stimulant is a tremendous aspect of bringing one's conscious highest alignment into the conscious self sphere and that of true sovereignty. That's exactly why there's such a heavy concentration of seen here and here. And that's why, of course, that's indicative in the coherence ratio with the aspects of the green and purple fluorite offset to have a very impeccable alignment to mitigate chaotic vibrations for impeccable coherence to the entire auric field, particularly when this is being wielded. Then right here is a lateral band of golden sheen obsidian, which obsidian is a black gray crystal quite in vogue for being quite famous for mitigating negativity by, just like the transmutation ratio, serving as a rapid bypass into the earth for reprocessing. But the aspect of golden sheen with a gold tinge to it actually has a nice gold-white light source attunement, subtle homage in the darkness that cannot be really well illustrated in the camera, but it's there. Oh, you can see it pretty well over here. And so that's exactly why this lateral band is another further diffuser of negativity into positivity, because obviously all the contact patch elements that this high yield apparatus can have in the structure is quite beneficial to making the magic real, as well as providing a strong purification energy output. Okay. And so the aspect too, why these paper towels are here, are to protect this lovely lapis blue leather from oil as much as possible. To which I shall move to illustrate the comprehensive engine before I move on to the rest of the blade, which will be quite the cataloging endeavor. Alrighty. So down here, before I mention any of these components for cataloging purposes, I'll discuss this white leather, which will be installed much like a hood after this video is completed, which will have this nice little homage to further Egyptian alignment. So, the aspect of the white leather seen right here has many functions far more than aesthetics. So the aspect of it serving as a protector, of course, for all these crystals terminated like so, a way to protect these crystals as being intendedly wielded as a wand, as well as the white spectrum right here works as a nice full 7-ray diffusion of the 7 rays, which is very, very good, appropriate placement for the main dynamics of the extremely concentrated intricacies of this construct, as well as, most importantly, it also serves as insulation. So when the aspects of this extremely complex subroutine right here, this is developed to be installed like so to mitigate lateral disparate energy from leaking, if you would. So the energy is more condensed and more consolidated through the primary blade band scaffolding. So it's more efficient in energy resonance transference at a very high ratio through the entire circuitry. So that's precisely why that's there, as well as, of course, while I'm at it, it will be aesthetically pleasing based on the appropriate engineering specifications of refinement to be put into place. And on top of that white leather, like I said, this little nice homage of the Eye of Horus and a pyramid is a great callback to Egyptian magical locality, which is part of the spirit of this blade, of course, of Pharaoh at the recipient's request. And without further ado, I shall be discussing the immersive intricacies of the main engine of this construct. So starting off with the clear quartz will work as a neutral accelerant of other ambient energies in a quartz point format, particularly the impulses and prayers of the energy of the wielder when in resonance with this construct to make it a true amplificative instrument of consciousness-assisted technology. And so the aspect also right there makes for a very neutral resonance. And of course that goes with all the clear quartz seen in many various structures, the whole construct for common ground amplification impulse of energy, which makes for a nice natural neutral amplification of the closed loop circuit as a third-dimensional artifact of a standing wave emanation of the hardware, but the software, of course, implies the aspect of the wielder's intention broadcast resonance amplification throughout the entire construct. So anyhow, moving on. So I'll go ahead and tackle something a little more pragmatic as a little start with this large piece of black shungite seen right here, which is noble elite shungite of a large specimen, which will be quite integral for the device's full functionality. So shungite, of course, is a very in vogue carbon-based black-gray transmuter of negativity into positivity, which has gained quite a bit of notoriety for its acclaim to mitigate 5G or unnatural harmful wavelengths we contend with as a modern species that could be damaging to our delicate DNA sequences. And so with that, black-gray carbon-based purification also makes a direct attunement transmutation to the carbon-based scaffolding of the physical avatar to have very deep structural transmutation of stored negativity in the atomical pattern, if you would. It's that deep to purify into negativity, into positivity, like a charcoal filter, to keep it simple, for once. And so this section I'll discuss in one shot because they're quite integral to play off each other. So the aspects of jasper and agate seen right here actually are the most stable vibrations in the mineral kingdom based on the color spectrum and elemental resonance. So for example, red jasper is the quintessential most stabilizing earth elemental root chakra stimulant. Going into fire agate, the most stabilizing fire elemental spectrum of stimulation of the solar plexus, sacrum, and the root chakra. Then the moss green agate is the quintessential water stabilization heart chakra stimulant. Then going into blue lace agate, which is another water elemental fifth chakra stimulant. Then this right here is grape agate, which is a air elemental purple ray stabilization of the 6th and 7th chakras. So the aspect of why it's so integral is that it takes in the subroutine of this entire vast apparatus and brings forth the most stabilized 4 terrestrial elemental spectrum subroutine possible of earth, fire, water, and wind to be an impeccable stabilization subroutine to expand the field's ingestibility with the 4 terrestrial elements. All right, so moving on, this right here will be lepidolite, which is a high lithium potassium-based crystal, which is extremely soothing to the entire nervous system and is a quintessential oasis of calm generator in the mineral kingdom. To bring a little bit of calm and clarity with this much high horsepower is very, very advantageous as a contingency. Then right here, this is flint, which is a tremendously underrated crystal of very high Earth star stimulation to ground high etheric energy from the higher realms into tangibility of the earth, which was well praised and utilized as arrowheads, particularly in First Nation tradition of medicine. Then right here, I'll go ahead and discuss these guys from this angle, is the rose quartz, which is a fantastic pink gray high heart source attunement frequency and a nice little dose right there. This is black tektite, a fantastic product of meteorite impacting sand, carrying that heaven to earth extraterrestrial jolt into third dimensional reality. So the aspect of it being a meteoric produced glass, like a space obsidian if you would, is quite fantastic, and it's very pragmatic raising of vibrations from black ray scaffolding up to raise the entire auric field threshold in general, which is quite the integral staple in virtually all light tech for that pragmatic raising of vibrations from, thank goodness, a foundational setting. Then right here is smoky celestial quartz, which is smoky quartz variant, which by the way I mentioned the transmutation ratio is very grounding and purifying, but the aspect of the growth structure of celestial smoky quartz plays quite the integral far out role in a linear coherent dissertation to serve as a perfect idyllic regulation frequency or adaptogen for the entire crystalline pitch of the device to the most comfortable parameter ingestion energy adaptability for the recipient as well as whoever the recipient is working with this high yield magical construct, which plays for quite the important aspect of also a surge protector to ensure the frequency pitch is in the highest premium optimum without being too overt, and it works as a rather integral contingency. Then flipping it over. So I'll discuss this right now one shot because it's quite integral. They be discussed together. So, Star Argonite seen right here is a calcium-based full light body healer, which is very advantageous for dismantling patterns of disease from top to bottom. Then in tandem with the Seraphinite, providing the same energetic stimuli function, once again, to dismantle patterns of dis-ease stored in the chakra column from top to bottom. They work together in that fashion. And then, there it is. Tibetan black quartz is the trinity of these master healers that works just like the Seraphinite and the Star Argonite to clear patterns from top to bottom of any stored patterns of misalignments, so to speak, manifesting as a disease on the etheric level. And so that's precisely why this trinity has been deemed the restoration trinity, and those little three work fantastic in vibrational compound interest to provide a very high yield dynamic healing field. Then right here is a large piece of Sedona red rock, which is of course where this blade was crafted, which makes for a very nice high iron grounding radio. Hence this place is quite legendary for its magical capacity, because all the high iron concentration in the arrangement of this entire region brings a very high yield grounding of etheric energy into manifestation as a true advantageous place for magic. So very spectacular. Then right here is Sunstone, which is a fantastic solar plexus sacrum stimulant, a very sunny, fun energy that's a quintessential antidepressant in vibrational terms, I'd say. Then above that, to continue the solar theme, would be that of amber, though not technically a mineral, actually quite fantastic prehistoric tree sap that's been petrified. And it makes for another deeper purification negativity into positivity, just like the shungite and the smoky quartz. There's many transmutation agents working together. Then right here, this is Healer's Gold, which is a fantastic combination of pyrite and magnetite in one synergistic mineral to provide a very iron-based high grounding of etheric high radial energy as well through the cellular structure, which is very advantageous for making the magic real with this very high yield apparatus, of course, by design. Then right here, another black ray crystal of transmutation quite in vogue. That'd be that black tourmaline, which is just like indicative with many other black ray crystals, very good for purifying negativity to positivity through earth frequency dialysis resonance. And take a good look here. So the selenite right here, which I will save for the cataloging at the end, right here, of course, has been highlighted down here in the engine section as well to further serve the purpose once I get to the full illustrative purpose of that. And by golly, that actually would be the engine section, and surprisingly to me, quick timing described. So, like I mentioned, underneath this homage to Tutankhamun's burial mask is the transmutation ratio, lateral, much like this, except now concealed and insulated with the aspects of the lapis blue being a lovely, of course, 5th chakra fortification stimulant, then the gold being a personal power solar plexus stimulant, and of course, like mentioned thrice at least now, a great homage to Tutankhamun's burial mask at this point. Now, moving on to this section up here, get everything adjusted for this last stretch. Okay, so next I will discuss the thumb engagement scene right here, which has been developed to, just like the implied, engage the thumb like so. So this little core of this power pack is that of Faden quartz, which is a very specialty clear quartz variant that through its entire life structure, actually it breaks and restitches, so you can't see it now, but there's many basically breaks and restitches seen in the quartz structure of its unobstructed that has a very particular mimicking frequency of actually working like vibrational fix-a-flat for any shatter points, the auric field's continuity, and works very quickly to restitch, like an etheric bandage if you would, any gaps or weak points in the entire chakra column's continuities, impeccable manifestation. I gotta get this guy to behave. Gosh. Anyway, just have to do it live, roll with it, one take of course as always. And so the aspect too, with that much supporting energy of this entire configuration going through the whole structure, it also works to further fortify any break points and stitch points through that auric fields, now non-ideal configuration, to have another layer of massive healing. There's contingencies upon contingencies on top of contingencies in every one of these vibration engineering designs, particularly this one right here, which is a very high yield rendition. So that's why that core has been there to work as ultimate restitching and etheric bridging at real time. Then around that will be a heavy concentration of lapis lazuli in a power pack that works as clear quartz to neutrally accelerate the lapis, once again, which I mentioned a few times, as a quintessential homage to Egyptian magic of a 5th and 6th chakra stimulant. Of air elemental concentration of sovereign compatibility, which is also very appropriate for the yang variant of what can be considered Egyptian magic empowerment, sovereign capacity of the pharaohs, quite literally. And so that right there is the perfect balance of the yin and yang of the same Egyptian locality utilization of magical crystalline allies. Very cool. And affixed to the Faden quartz would be that of tanzanite, which is a very legendary, impeccable heart-mind coherent stimulant based on its integral activation of the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th to stimulate a very powerful elliptical heart-mind coherence circuit, basically, which is very advantageous. Then right here, a little dose of moldavite goes a very long way in this high apparatus. It is a quintessential green ray dharmic accelerant to connection to creation. Very legendary magical stuff of synchronicity and very powerful, obvious magic that's quite tangible. There we go. And of course, try to get this guy to behave. It's a little pet peeve on the fly. So that'd be the thumb engagement discussed in full. And now this next section I'll be discussing will be the blade facing, seen like so, which of course has been developed to be as symmetrical as possible for very even emanation vibrational compounding interest. Starting off with the scoiasites on both sides. Scoiasite is a quintessential white ray stone of divinity of storm element concentration that has a fantastic 6th, 7th, 8th non-physical chakra stone back to one's godhead as a quintessential stone of divinity, as well as an extreme soothing, calming, witness self perspective engagement alignment of one's divine lens perception, which goes a very long way for the in-the-body experience spiritual disposition alignment. So once again, always, quintessential stone of divinity right there due to its extreme crown chakra activation and extreme soothing capacity of that higher lens. So next will be these love currencies with the love-shine ratio fixed to them. And so I've had the privilege many times now to augment the love currency, which was commissioned into existence by the wonderful wizard of Sedona, Mr. Stephen A. Ross. And so on both sides it says, an open mind, a humble spirit, and a beautiful heart. On the other side of the coin it says, with love, in love, and through love. And so that is the two sides of the coin of something he commissioned into existence as what can be considered an absolute truth for impeccable conducting in the human life experience, which I have had the great honor of augmenting many of these renditions across the world at this point. But the aspect also, of course, further fortifies that morphic field as another entry into the crystalline amplification, which of course is a bit of empowering a modern magical sigil of love, which is very nice and very advantageous. And speaking of that further augmentation of love, this would be the love-shine ratio, which is a trifecta of 3 pink ray crystals in one closed-loop sequence working as a holy trinity of pink ray, high heart, divine love resonators, which goes a very long way. So the aspect of rose quartz is a very classic high heart, pink ray, divine love stimulant resonance attunement with clear quartz neutrally accelerate this sequence into kunzite, which is a lovely pink ray, high heart, high lithium soothing base of divine love attunement. Then in tandem with clear quartz and the morganite, which is actually a beryl family member, which means it's related to aquamarine as well as emerald, and has an 8.5 out of 10 the hardness scale, which means its pink ray atomical density at the structural level is quite intense. And I'm very confident that if this pink ray crystal was discussed and discovered in times of antiquity, it would be another legendary crystal, just like aquamarine and emerald, that most mortals have heard of as a true precious stone. But it was discovered a couple hundred years ago, and so that's why it's morganite, it's pink ray, emerald, so it has a very strong divine love resonance. So naturally, the three together generate substantial vibrational compound interest of divine love attunement as a trifecta. Speaking of divine love, so I'll discuss these two next in one sequence of the golden azeztulite as well as the golden healer quartz in the shape of a triquetra, which is not quite pharaohic but yet very appropriate for the recipient's designation of magical mastery encoded in the structure of the triquetra, which of course is a very druidic magical symbol, but irregardless, the aspect of the crystalline structure was what I'm meant to stay on target with in a linear fashion. So both these crystals have a distinct gold white light high heart source attunement direct broadcast, which of course, as a little joke I overuse, is that puts the source in sorcery through direct source attunement. And so those two together work fantastic in vibrational compound interest for a direct gold white light source embodiment attunement, which goes a very long way for the spiritual adept in my humble opinion. So then next I'll be discussing the lapis once again, which I've already mentioned 5 times, so I'll go ahead and mitigate that dissertation to keep things streamlined. Then going into turquoise, which is another blue-ray crystal of great acclaim, to put it lightly. That's been a favorite of millions for thousands of years. But I will omit a great amount of lore to keep things consolidated as a tremendous 5th chakra stimulant, combining the aspects of earth, fire, water, and air as a terrestrial 4 elements 5th chakra focus, a full pranic stimulation, which is a quintessential stone of wholeness, which is once again very advantageous for fortifying that sovereign capacity. Then next, at the very apex of the blade itself, is quite the exciting subroutine. I will discuss the golden healer quartz affixed to both ends of this fulgurite first. Like mentioned down here a while ago, golden healer quartz is a very synergistic combination of iron pyrite as well as magnetite to further ground the radial energy into a cellular level. And why they're there is another contingency to get the most out of this fulgurite, which is actually petrified lightning. That's when lightning strikes sand to hold the silica radius of literally holding the power of lightning in this structure, which was a classically utilized spirit tool of antiquity by shamans to amplify, literally resonate the power of lightning to intensify their magic. Very cool stuff. And so naturally, that wire wrap to this entire apparatus is quite ambitious to literally add the current of lightning through the entire closed-loop reactive circuit. But what also makes it rather noteworthy is that this is, of course, is Red Rock or Ruby City lightning, as I call it, or fulgurite, which has a very high iron concentration where the lightning struck somewhere in the vicinity, probably over here. You never know. But the point is that that high iron grounding of lightning further grounds the lightning energy resonance attunement into the tangible range, which makes it ridiculously advantageous for the aspects of magic. Hence, it's there. All right. So next, I'll be discussing the oak core, the selenites and the kyanites and the focalizers, and just about on the home stretch of this dissertation. So, the aspect of the oak core itself is quite integral because oak is a very famous legendary wood, which I once again will omit a great amount of lore and legend to consolidate this video as much as possible. This is alright enough to talk about in one take. And oak plays the integral role of being a carbon-based transfer agent to all the silica radius built around it or crystal energy built around it to further bring resonance attunement to the carbon-based scaffolding of the human avatar, at least for now, to make the magic real, which is quite integral. Also, oak is quite the strong wood, so its atomical structure is very strengthening to the auric field as well. With such a high-yield sovereign construct, very, very appropriate on a pragmatic and esoteric level. And next, I shall discuss the focalizers. So just like implied, they're developed to actually focus the energy because everything discussed thus far in this nearly half hour of this crystalline rant, somehow, some way, has been affixed to this primary wire of copper, brass, and silver spooled together. And so naturally, everything within this figure 8 is inside this radical containment field for maximum recirculation of the energy. I'll be clearing my throat because it's quite a bit to talk about, obviously. And so why these guys are relevant is that these focus the energy, work to focus the exterior of the figure 8, and are grounded into the primary wire seen right here to work as a directional current amplification. Starting off with titanium ore quartz seen right here. Titanium quartz is the product of modern alchemical pursuit of pressure coating titanium on a clear quartz structure, which is very, very powerful for fortifying the entire rainbow light body from top to bottom, as well as the subtle energies of the auric field's integrity, which is very, very powerfully strengthening. And that's precisely why they've been employed behind the golden healer quartz in the quartz point spectrum, much like this guy, to be a further gold white light direct source attunement focus of this energy. So that's why they're there. Yep, got a frog in my throat from all this. Then right here are the selenites, seen right here, which play quite the integral role, which I'll discuss right now. And so selenite is a very fantastic 6th, 7th, 8th non-physical chakra stimulant back to one's Godhead, which effectively clears the reach between one's high self and one's conscious self. And so that's very advantageous for a spiritual adept. But the aspect too, with that high frequency induction, attunement also works to burn off stagnant energies, not of divine resonance, through the entire auric field, which makes it truly a master healer in the crystalline kingdom by itself. But where it's always quite integral in these constructs is discussing this entire 31 minutes now of a closed loop reactive circuit. Even down here, there's some selenite. It works as a purification for all these crystals in sequence. It also works as an amplification, and most importantly, it works as a harmonization and equilibrium inducing aspect of the entire base platform, which is quite advantageous for a truly triumphant, effective spirit tool as far as I'm concerned. So that's why I prefer to save that for last as a comprehensive capstone as I'm winding down for one of these in-depth dissertations. And so the aspect too of the kyanites in the 4 spectrums affixed to the selenite play an integral role as well. So for this next section, I'll be utilizing whimsically fast penmanship to illustrate the different spectrums of kyanite, because they are the most rapid transfers of energy in the mineral kingdom based on their elemental spectrum correspondence, based on color resonance. So black kyanite is the absolute rapid, quick grounder of energy, which of course encourages this entire etheric radius to rapidly disperse into the earth for reprocessing to make the magic real and also make it an effective rerouting and another surge protector contingency. Orange kyanite is a very rapid sacrum stimulant to the highest capacity to bridge past limitation blockages, which is very indicative of the human condition we all endure if we're here on this planet. So that's very effective for rapid transfer energy that way capacity too. And green kyanite is very effective for heart chakra blockage points to rapidly transmit and transfer past weak points and bridge past any kind of block points. Then blue kyanite is a very effective third eye stimulant to mitigate cross interference between the right and left hemispheres to confer whole brain thinking, aka awakened third eye. So also the 4 together make for another layer of etheric Teflon. This little whimsical joke I employ. That much rerouting, rebuffing of energy is very discouraging for weaker, non-alchemical divine alignment source points to actually maintain the field, and with that much rerouting, rebuffering, it's quite discouraging for stagnant energy to maintain the field as well. So that's an aspect too. It makes it quite practical when it comes to esoteric metaphysical application. And oh my goodness, that would be it. Okay, so nearly 33 minutes, and I have cataloged the entire construct seen right here. So obviously Pharaoh is a very high yield, ambitious super construct that has the stones to back it, pun very much intended as a little whimsy to break up the monotony of hardcore magical dissertation. And that'd be all. 1,000 blessings. May the force be with us all.